Hey everyone, it's Suntypes, and today I'm going to be talking about another card design video. This time we're going to be looking at Boltund V, a really interesting Pokemon. And based on what you reviewed it as in the community tab of my YouTube channel, where I do polls about videos that I'm going to make and other things as well. But I made one about Boltund V here, asking for a star rating out of 4 in this case, so you can multiply that by 10 to get the score out of 40 comparable to my score. People said 31.5, 32 out of 40, so that's pretty good. That's not amazing, but especially with a community poll like this, often they'll tend towards the middle a little bit, so that's quite good. And a lot of the things that people said were they thought it was pretty well designed, which I agree with some, but there are a lot of things to look into here. First of all, let's look at what Boltund V does, and also if you haven't seen my video about how I analyze these cards, check that out below in the description. There should be a link to that video where I talk about the 4 categories that I'm looking at. Each are worth 10 points, so a total of course, out of 40. But the first one here is the card interesting in a vacuum? So just at face value, doesn't look interesting. And Boltund V actually does. Pretty normal stats, nothing too impressive here. Arguably, I'd say it might be a bit more interesting if it had a 1 retreat cost, but 2 retreat cost isn't crazy. Of course, looking here, you see it as 2 attacks. And it's lightning type. So first is attack Electrify. For 1 lightning, search your deck for up to 2 lightning energy and attach them to your bench Pokemon in any way you like, then shuffle your deck. So obviously that's a really nice setup attack, and you have a solid chunk of HP, 200, nothing amazing, a bit below average actually for Pokemon V, and a weakness to fighting, so you're not super tanky, but certainly getting off that first attack there can provide solid value. And a nice setup attack, not overpowered. It doesn't look like it. It looks just pretty solid though. And you can either accelerate it all to 1 Pokemon or split it up between a few, depending which way you want to go. And it will depend on the deck, but having that option is nice. You cannot accelerate energy to yourself as well. But let's look at the other attack here, I guess. Bolt Storm for Lightning Colorless, so pretty versatile as well, and that attack cost makes a lot of sense. It does 10 plus 30 more for each lightning energy attached to all your Pokemon. Of course, this means it synergizes really well with the first attack. The first attack powers up more damage for the second attack. And so it's not an amazingly powerful attack, but it can get really big if you're able to either use Electrify a lot of turns or power it up in some other way. So theoretically a strong attack, but generally nothing too impressive. But overall, it's pretty solid, and this is a really great card design, I think. And many people also said this. It's nice having both a set of Pokemon and an attacker, because it just provides a lot of value throughout the game. It's not a Pokemon that you ignore at the beginning of the game. You don't ignore it at the end of the game either. It's always a threat, always has value. It's not like the main attacker necessarily either. It just is a really interesting Pokemon with various uses. Can be really good, can be a bit underwhelming. Takes some skill use as well, deciding where to put the energy with Electrify. Nothing too crazy though. Bolt Storm, simple enough for most people to pick up and use. So this is, like, in my opinion, the perfect card at face value. Having this utility also, I really like a Pokemon that has both some setup value or utility value as well as some attacking presence. This Pokemon does both of those very well and in a very effective manner. So this is going to get a 10 out of 10 for me in terms of interesting in a vacuum. It's pretty much perfect in this sense. It's just really cool. And there's not too much more I have to say about it, but it's in a vacuum, it's awesome. Now, is it interesting within context? So one of the things that stood out to me, someone said when replying to this, they said, hit the bell or subscribe, then you'll be notified of when I post these polls. So then you can, or at least you can find them easier. So then you can, of course, vote on them and also like comment on them and comment on this video as well. I really enjoy interacting with those, and it provides great feedback for me, and hopefully you learn something and enjoy that as well. But someone said that Boltund V was really interesting, except one problem is that it only was good in, they said, 1 deck. This is an interesting idea. And of course, I'm assuming the deck they're referring to is Pikachu and Zekrom here. So Boltund V has amazing synergy with Pikachu and Zekrom Tag Team GX. Pikachu and Zekrom Tag Team GX is amazing. You could argue it's the first overpowered Pokemon, which is a bit of a weird thing to say. And I was thinking about what I was going to say for this video, and I determined that's what I was going to say. And I imagine some of you are thinking, that's absurd. Like, what does that even mean? But it's very good. It's the first 3 prizer, really set the pace of the game, and Boltund V had amazing synergy with it. allowing you to set up Pikachu and Zekrom, and then just attack Boltstorm, doing more damage after you attack with Pikachu and Zekrom. So an amazing synergy there. Also, of course, pairs nicely with any other lightning attackers, notably Raichu and Alolan Raichu, Vikavolt V here. And then you can also use it to power up Raichu V, so interesting there. You can power up Boltund V itself with Flaffy if you want to attack with Boltstorm to do big damage. And then there's also Boltund V Max, which deserves a mention. Although it came out later than Boltund V, there's actually a different Boltund V. And it's kind of weird, but Boltund V Max has essentially the same first attack, and then its second attack here, Max Bolt, does just straight up damage, a very basic attack. But Boltund V Max is essentially a Boltund V with more HP, so that's something to note as well. You can also power Boltund V with Tapu Koko, and then also Arceus V-Star. It can be used to power up Boltund V, or it was played with Boltund V Max. Regieleki V Max, a possible attacking threat, but also allowing you to do more damage with Boltund V. Again, so some more interesting effects there. But really, the main deck I saw play in was Pikachu and Zekrom, and the person who commented that was definitely right. However, it did see some actual play as well with Arceus V-Star. Some serious, I'm not sure if I'd say, pretty high level play with Boltund V Max, Arceus V Star, possibly Raichu V, Flaffy kind of thrown into this deck, this Lightning Toolbox deck. Boltund V Max is really one of the best Lightning Pokemon around. It's very good, provides good value in almost any Lightning deck. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's nothing particularly interesting here, though. Usually when you look at a card in a vacuum, you're like, okay, this is cool or this is not cool. But then when you look at it within context, some more properties emerge that you didn't originally realize, and the way it interacts with other cards is really interesting. Boltund V doesn't necessarily have that. It's not bad. I give it a 10 out of 10 in a vacuum, so it can't be that bad within context. And it's not. I gave it an 8 out of 10, which is still quite solid. But just a bit disappointing compared to what it could have been, looking at it from its base value, because it just has, it has ways of powering it up, and it powers up other stuff, which is obviously that's the two attacks that it does. But that's it, right? It does its job. It doesn't do anything particularly special, though. There's no big payoff. It's just fun. I mean, you could argue big payoffs are stuff like Raichu V, Pikachu and Zekrom, Raichu and Alolan Raichu, but it's a bit underwhelming. I'm ragging on it. I gave it an 8 out of 10. It's still very good. Could have done a bit more with it, though. Also, Lightning type has been just pretty underwhelming, and Boltund V isn't exactly a card that carries a deck on its own. It needs some good partners, so we see it paired with stuff like Mewtwo, Mewtwo GX, and Arceus V-Star, two very powerful, essentially colorless Pokemon. And so Boltund V, of course, synergizes well with that, and then something like Blissey as well. It synergizes well with Blissey V. But nothing too crazy there. But let's look at it. But still very good. Let's look at it. How is it fun to play against? This is a category that's kind of weird to look at, and I don't think there's too much to say about this. It's not unfun to play against, but it's not particularly fun. There are some counters though with weakness here. You can of course play some fighting Pokemon, Galarian Zapdos V, Repstrike, Urshifu V Max, not necessarily used to counter Boltund itself. They soft play in the meta and also help counter Boltund. So that's kind of interesting with a weakness. It shares weakness with a lot of different Pokemon, so it's kind of cool. And also Starmie V, a bit of a bad example, but the one that I chose. Punishing your opponent for having lots of energy in play is a bit more interesting. Starmie V saw play to counter Arceus V-Star, and in turn also somewhat counter Boltund V. Of course, Starmie V is weak to Boltund V, so not the best counter, but you can play stuff like Espeon V Max, Orbeetle V Max, providing similar ideas where you punish energy attachment. So you can see things like this, which are a bit interesting. And you kind of need to play around how much damage you think your opponent's going to do next turn, and just adapt based on that. And Boltund V can kind of leave in the active. They're going to keep setting up with Electrify, but you don't need to KO it. It might get stuck because of its 2 retreat cost, which is a bit interesting. I'm certainly not sad to play against it. It's kind of cool, but it's nothing particularly amazing. It's above average with the 6 out of 10 here, but it's again nothing too crazy. It's good, but it's not it's nothing particularly amazing in this category because it doesn't have any special interactions as I was talking about. Now last category, balanced, and this is a bit of a pretty straightforward one. It's pretty balanced, right? You could argue though it supplemented Arceus V-Star and more importantly Pikachu and Zekrom GX too much. These are amazingly powerful Pokemon. Boltund was good in specifically Pikarom. And it doesn't necessarily have direct counters, but it's not really a big deal. I think it's pretty balanced. It's an 8 out of 10. You could argue it's even higher, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. Arguably, it's a bit underpowered because it doesn't have the right partners, which you could say isn't Boltund's fault, but I don't know. It's hard to talk about its balance. It's well balanced though. 8 out of 10 still very good. And yeah, you can tell the Boltund get a very good score, a 32 out of 40. Actually, essentially the same as the community rating. People said around 3, a bit above 3. And so yeah, it's very good, right? It's not, but I said not follow through on. So what exactly does that mean? Well, 10 out of 10 in a vacuum. We're looking for more emergent properties that show up when it's looked at within the meta, and because there aren't too many unique lightning Pokemon, Boltund V falls a bit short in that aspect. This is not the highest card we've ranked if you've seen my series. It's still quite high. It's very close. But it falls a little bit flat. You could argue I could give it a few more points. I was considering doing that, but still 32 out of 40, quite good. It's not perfect though. So I'm interested in hearing what your thoughts are. As I said, I've heard some, but also that's from the community tab, which doesn't obviously get as many people as the videos themselves. So I'm interested in hearing those. I'd really appreciate if you commented those. And also, I'd really appreciate, of course, if you'd like, subscribe, hit the bell as well, so you can interact with my channel more, because I really enjoy that. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. I'm interested in hearing what other cards you want me to analyze. I think the next one I might be doing is Boltund V. I have a poll currently going on for that one. And I'm also going to talk about some pre-evolutions. Someone asked for that. I have a video which isn't actually about designing of them, but it's like, what's the best pre-evolution? I'm kind of just rambling now. But I'm interested in providing you the best content that I can, and I'm interested in hearing what you want. But I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.